Are there certain patterns that families can take that would worsen the situation with somebody who's battling addiction?
Yes, taking it personal. I had one big regret. It would be that I thought that my love for my son would be enough for him to stop using.
Do you feel like a mother or a family member can love someone to death when they're facing addiction?
Absolutely not. You can't love somebody to death. It's so contradictory. What if we said, can I love my loved one to life rather than to death?
Why are so many young people getting addicted earlier now?
I think social media is a big influence. A lot of instant gratification, a lack of real true social connection. Also, children are getting medicated younger today. The nature of the drugs today, the synthetic drugs, they have much more addictive qualities than some of the drugs back many decades ago.
How does someone try to rebuild trust with their loved ones after obviously putting them through that roller coaster of fighting addiction?
So coming from a patient's perspective, I teach my patients to be very curious and ask their loved ones what they need to rebuild the trust, rather than to make an assumption. I encourage open communication.
What's going on, beautiful world, and welcome to another episode of the Black Sheep Perspective. Today's amazing guest is Miss V. Miss V is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's also a family recovery specialist, educator, and someone who transformed one of her most painful chapters of her life into a mission to help families all over the country. Before becoming a therapist, Ms. V was simply a mother desperately trying to understand why her son had fallen into addiction at such a young age. Like so many parents, she questioned herself. Did I fall? Did I fail? What could I have done differently? Why isn't anything we're being told actually working? After years of watching her family struggle and feeling frustrated by what she believed were outdated approaches to addiction and family recovery, she made a life-changing decision. She went back to school later in life, became a licensed family therapist, and dedicated her career to helping families navigate addiction, recovery, boundaries, healing, and hope. And in today's episode, we dive into some incredibly difficult but important conversations. We discuss why addiction is often a family disease, not just an individual struggle, the difference between helping someone and enabling them, whether parents can knowingly or unknowingly love their children deeper into addiction, when protecting someone becomes participating in their destruction, why so many traditional approaches to addiction treatment fail families, the truth about boundaries, tough love, and accountability, whether rock bottom is real or one of the biggest misconceptions in recovery, what therapists often get wrong about addiction, and how families can begin healing even when their loved ones isn't ready. This conversation is raw, it's emotional, and in many ways, it'll completely change the way you think about addiction, recovery, parenting, and healing. Whether you're struggling personally, love someone battling addiction, or simply want to better understand what families go through behind closed doors, this episode is one you won't want to miss. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with Miss V. Let's get to the podcast. Ms. V, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence here on the podcast.
Thank you.
I know that this podcast is really going to hit hard and hit home for a lot of people out there. There's going to be things that people need to hear. There's going to be things that people might disagree with. There's going to be things that people relate to, but all in all, it's a very important topic, and we all, in some way, shape, or form, are connected to it. So I want to get right into this. So a lot of parents think that addiction means they failed. But what if the real failure was that the way the families were taught to respond to addiction? Ms. V, your work is different because this isn't just theory for you. This became personal when your own son struggled with drugs. And instead of letting shame destroy you, you went back to school later in life to become the kind of therapist you wish your family had. That's so commendable, I swear. Take me back to the moment where you stopped asking, what's wrong with my son, and started asking what we're missing with the family.
So it took a long time before I got to the place where I actually could even ask myself that question, because I was not a therapist when my son first started struggling with addiction, so I had sought out help. And it was as a direct result of a therapist saying to me, I know this is the hardest thing you've ever been through, but this isn't about you. This is about what he's going through. And so I blame myself because I think I overreacted initially at his early use. And then as time went by and his addiction progressed, I think I was just so overwhelmed with fear. I just did nothing. I went into a little bit of denial.
What did you think was happening when he was first, I guess when you were first stumbling upon the drug use? Did you immediately know that it was the drug use, or did you think something else was wrong?
Well, I grew up in a very strict household where like experimentation of pot and drinking, it just wasn't something that I had experience with. So I think I got really panicked when I became aware that my son was smoking cannabis. I was like, oh my God, this is really bad. So I think I overreacted at the beginning. And then unfortunately, his addiction progressed pretty rapidly from cannabis to opiates to heroin.
Do you think that the addiction was, I guess, influenced by peers, by, hanging out with the wrong crowd? Was it something rebellious, because of anything that was happening at the house at the time? Or was it just a bad choice that eventually grew into a whole lot worse?
Oh, God, Wes, I wish I had the answer to that question.
Yeah, I know.
It's many.
Right.
So many families want the answer to that question. I think initially when there were behavioral issues, I was a little concerned. But I think it's so complex because I think it was a lot of different things. I think pain is ultimately why my son's addiction progressed.
Emotional pain, emotional struggles?
Emotional pain, some physical pain as he got a little older. But I can pretty much track that back with all the families I work with when they look back at their loved ones. It doesn't discriminate. This disease doesn't discriminate. There's families that have no trauma, no chaos. Their loved one struggles with addiction, and then there's families that, have.
And even though I know, and we're definitely going to hear the details about it, I know that you have a lot of different opinions than what is the common known structure and what's promoted a lot by other therapists out there and in your profession, but at the time, you were unaware of it because you didn't know any better. Like most families don't know enough. They just put their kid or loved ones in the hands of what they think are specialists. So it's a kind of a tough situation. You just got to hope for the best.
And at the beginning, I didn't even put him in the hands of a specialist. Looking back now that you said that, I think behaviorally, some things that were going on in school, I took this route of, let me put him in a military school from Monday through Friday and see if that will straighten it out. And that actually perpetuated his addiction because he was around other boys that were doing things that were a lot worse than smoking pot.
So at what point did you, because obviously this had to happen for a certain amount of time, you were educating yourself or you were realizing that there was a problem, even though you thought you were doing the best thing that you could, and maybe your other family members were. But at what point did you decide that you wanted to go back to school in order to become part of the solution?
So it was probably about 10 years into my son's addiction.
Push that mic a little bit
into you. Probably about 10 years, 8 to 10 years into my son's addiction.
Okay.
When I really started seeking out some personal growth and therapy for myself. Culturally, that goes a little bit out of our box. Culturally, we don't really go and talk to people about problems. We keep our problems kind of in our house. So up until then, I didn't realize that may have been contributed to some shame that I didn't even realize that I had been experiencing. Like, what would people think of me if they knew my son was struggling with an addiction?
So you think that kind of made you hold back from looking for it earlier?
Looking back, I don't think I knew that then. But now looking back, I think that there was probably more shame and definitely a lack of education.
So let's talk about that because, you, again, in your profession, you know that the SAMHSA, do you know what the hell that stands for? SAMHSA. All right. SAMHSA describes family therapy and substance use treatment as focused on family roles, relationships, communication patterns, and not just individual using substances. Why do you believe addiction is never just one person's problem?
Well, I grew up in a house. My father died of alcoholism, and he was 54. But we never called my father an alcoholic. So now, looking back, I also realized that I am an adult child of someone who died of alcoholism. They call it adult children of alcoholics. I just call it my father suffered from alcoholism. I don't like labels. I don't call people alcoholics and addicts. So looking back, I'm sorry, refresh my memory what you were just asking. I got a little off track.
It's about so when you think about the way that the SAMHSA describes how to approach things, why do you believe addiction is never just one person's problem?
So there's a ripple effect, and we have enough research to show that this is not consciously that this happens, but other family members in the system to create some kind of homeostasis and balance when something's going on, whether it's a mental health issue, whether it's an addiction issue, even a physical issue. If somebody is medically fragile, there are roles that family members subconsciously take to survive. So for instance, one family member, did you want to ask me something?
No, go ahead.
One family member would be the hero in the system. The hero is the person that makes everything look like it's really great. If my son was in treatment, I'd be saying he's at a retreat, and then the scapegoat would be the one that would be just kind of starting a little problem to kind of distract everyone else from the system. And then there's the lost child, which can be an adult as well. The person that becomes invisible in the system, the enabler, which is the big buzzword in addiction treatment with families. So
so all those roles, without trying to get everybody synced into the same, hey, we all need to play a certain role and approach it with a certain, tactics. It's all scattered everywhere, and it typically doesn't lead to a good place with the person who's struggling.
It's not healthy for anybody in the system because all of the roles are unhealthy. The problem is that when someone is going to educate somebody on these roles, they'll explain what the role is, but they don't help family members understand why they stepped into that role subconsciously. It's not a conscious decision. People step into those roles just to create some homeostasis in a system that's been disrupted. If you imagine a baby mobile back in the olden days, the cribs had those little mobiles, and if you just hit one, they went ding, ding, ding.
Right. What the baby looks at when it's in the thing. Yeah.
Right? So the little farm animals and maybe an elephant in the middle, and if you just hit the elephant, all the other little animals would move. That's exactly what's happening in a family system that's been impacted by addiction or mental health. It's just not so visible.
Are people lacking accountability when they find themselves in those positions?
I love your questions, Wes, because, lacking accountability, I don't know if most people even understand the role they're in.
I get it.
And that's the problem I have with the industry that I so love. I work in treatment. I love the industry I work for. However, having conversations about accountability with a family member,
right?
That's like, wait, what do you mean?
They didn't even know that they were being part of the problem per se, right? And then you had said, the word enabler. So, talk us about that. Why is that such a shadow banned word when it comes to this circumstances?
So I call it the C word, codependency.
Okay.
And that's where that word came from. It started back in the days of Al-Anon, codependency. But there are people that have been engaging in enabling behaviors without addiction or mental health. And enabling behavior is just doing something for somebody they should be doing for themselves. In the context of other relationships, people don't shame people.
You see that's one of the biggest problems that we're going through, the shame?
I've talked about this before, Wes, and, I might get a little emotional. This all came from me I became very passionate when I became a clinician because of another clinician making a reference that I was going to love my son to death.
Oh,
fuck. Drew a little cemetery plot and asked me my son's name and, you're going to love your son to death. And I remember getting such a pit in my stomach.
This was his tactic with you.
And he said that tactic worked with other families. It did not work for me. Nor did it work for a lot of families that I've worked with since.
What was he trying to say that you were loving him too much that would eventually lead to his death? Why would he?
I need to let him reach his bottom.
So that
and I was preventing him from reaching the bottom. And, you know, growing up in the home with a first-generation Italian, I still was cutting my family's meat and serving them. That is, you know, doing for people, whether they need it done or not, it's like part of it's the fibers of my being. You know, so to hear somebody say, I've got to let, you know, my son reach his bottom, anybody for that matter, a friend, it just sounded like a foreign language to me.
Are there certain patterns that families can take that would worsen the situation with somebody who's, you know, battling addiction?
Yes, taking it personal.
Taking what the addict is doing personal against them.
That is my biggest regret. If I had one big regret, it would be that I thought that my love for my son would be enough for him to stop using. I threatened him clean. I tried to shame him clean. I tried to love him clean. I tried it all. I educate families that the greatest gift I gave myself was to stop asking why he was doing this to me and our family, and to start asking why he would be doing this to himself.
Wow. That's tough to hear that you tried everything and yet couldn't figure it out, and then it didn't hit until what, I guess when you got educated eventually?
No, not even.
Or not
then.
even, because
not even
that's an old school way that you're pretty much kind of
not even then
talking shit about, right?
I think that for me, and I don't want to get off topic.
No, of course not. Go ahead.
Looking back at my, you know, years of being on a roller coaster ride, you know, with my son, not only with my son's addiction, in life, I think we're all on a little bit of a roller coaster.
Of course,
right?
we all do, yes.
We all have stuff that's going to come up and pop up. Mm-hmm. But there's this theory that I was fortunate enough to train under wonderful leaders in Seattle, and I did like 8 years of additional training, and we spoke a lot about this concept of codependency coming from a place of pain, that we get into these roles because of pain. So looking back and understanding now, I probably would still have enabled my son. I just wanted to stop persecuting him.
So you know, when we spoke earlier before we got on camera, mm-hmm. and it's kind of piggybacking exactly, you know, where we're at right now with this conversation, and that's, you know, I had mentioned one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and if, you know, you were okay with it, especially knowing the circumstances, and pretty much here we are. And the question was, you know, you said you were okay with it. So for the people watching, I'm not putting her on the spot that we didn't, you know, get the thumbs up for, because you look at things differently, and like I said, you know, you truly are a genuine black sheep in your field, with, you know, that you don't want to just keep doing what's been done for so long, these old traditional ways, especially when you kind of live through it and you see that it's not always, I know you respect it and love it and you promote it, but you know there needs to be change. Well, the main question that we asked was, do you feel like a mother or a family member can love someone to death when they're facing addiction? And you got a little emotional about it, and you were asking me if you can really say your opinion. Here's the mic. Run with it. You know, what's wrong with that question, and where do people have it wrong?
Well, absolutely not. You can't love somebody to death. It's actually contraindicative. You know, I think I'm saying the word wrong. It's so contradictory,
right,
to love someone to death. I think that what's happening here is when we make a family member so responsible, Wes, then it takes away the person struggling's responsibility. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, something I really have come to understand as I've worked longer into this career, right? Again, a lot of this stuff is hindsight for me.
Do you think when people say that question, because I kind of want to compartmentalize it or break it down a little bit, do you think that the reason why it doesn't make enough sense, or it doesn't, you know, roll off the tongue the right way, is because I feel like they're saying that, meaning if you love someone so much and you keep getting their back, you keep giving them that loan, you keep letting them sleep at that, whatever it is that they're referring to, then you're not going to teach them a lesson, you know. And I kind of know that you mean that's where the other guy was saying, you know, let them hit rock bottom.
But here's the thing. Would we be teaching another person with a different disease a lesson?
Right.
Would we be even having the same conversation if it was a loved one that had cancer or diabetes, right?
That's such a great point.
Let's teach him a lesson and take away his insulin because he hasn't been using it, right?
Imagine that. Yeah, that's a great comparison. You're right.
But I have even a better one. What would it be like if we said, just even tried to see what this sounded like? What if we said, can I love my loved one to life rather than to death? Because I work with bereaved parents for 11 years, and 85% of the parents I work with have buried their children to disease, addiction, overdoses, or mental health. And if I took them in a room, they'd split up about evenly. One family is beating themselves up because they so-called enabled them, and the other family's beating themselves up because they set too firm of a line and their loved ones died in the street. I'm not here to tell families what they need to do. I'm here to educate families, empower families, and teach families how to operate more from the heart.
There is no true, solve-it-all solution. But educating families is something that you truly feel is one of the strongest points to, help addicts out there. Basically, that families are not educated enough, and that's why they go about things in ways that that could be better, because they don't know enough. So, is that safe to say? Is that?
I would say education and empathy to me go hand in hand.
Oh, okay.
Education is extremely important, and so is empathy.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying they both are the same. Oh, you mean as in how important it is? Okay.
Education is so important.
And empathy. Okay.
And having empathy. And I don't just mean for the one that's struggling with the addiction or mental health. Empathy for ourselves as family members.
Right. Okay.
Giving ourselves a little grace. Giving ourselves a little kindness. Being able to say, I did the very best I could with what I knew. But when I know better, I have a responsibility to do better.
So outside of what we think is the obvious of, there's so many difficulties of dealing with somebody who's struggling against addiction, seems like the biggest epidemic is when people it burdens them so badly in regards to like how they treated the situation, whether it's still active or it's gone by, like they passed.
Say that, just let me make sure I
understand. It seems like the most difficult part, even though it's so difficult to deal with everything that comes with living with an addict, having an addict that's in your family. It seems like the most difficult part is they themselves, all the pressure they put on themselves of how they're trying to deal with it.
And our loved ones are going through it too, though, Wes, right? Because when a family member says, this is the very last time I'm helping you, this is the very last time I'm putting you in treatment, this is the very last time, that is a lot of pressure for somebody in early recovery.
Right.
And that's what I try to teach families. I believe that if my son or any family for that matter went for help, they think that in 30 days they come out and they're done, they're cured. Recovery is a lifestyle change. There's no quick fix.
So let's go through some difficult questions here, V. What would you tell a mother who might have been or is in what your shoes were once, or contemplated what you once contemplated, and who's thinking, my son's an addict or my kid's an addict and I failed them? What do you tell them?
I've been there. Let's not look back at how you think you might have failed them. How can I help support you today? What can I do to support you? Because failure is very subjective.
Yes.
Failure to one person, and like I work with parents and family members that have actually used with their children, right? That might be a different type of a failure for a family member, right? That used with their loved one versus, I wish I would have put my loved one in treatment a little sooner than I did. So I kind of try to meet people where they're at, and I don't get attached to words like failure or this. I try to say, okay, let's not really look at that. Let's look at like, what do we do today? How do I support you? How do I make you feel heard? And how can I love you enough to help you with your loved one?
I mean, I think that's such a great universal approach to almost any, obstacles that we face in life, where you can't dwell on the past. You just got to look at what's in front of you, and don't put these negative things into the air, especially when you keep saying that word failure. That's just so demeaning. It's just like, oh, that was it. Like, we fucked up, like that's crazy. So I love that you say that. And, these questions, they need to be addressed, because I know there's parents out there who, guys, if the shoe fits, you need to wear that motherfucker, because there's going to be a lot of you out there who are going to hear some of this, and you're going to be able to relate to it. And this is one that I really am saying this right now as a prelude, because I want the fellas out there, the fathers out there, to hear this. So what do you tell the dad who thinks that tough love, paramilitary approach to help trying to get an addict, going aligned? What do you tell him in regards to what that's doing to him?
If that worked, we wouldn't need treatment centers, because I haven't worked with very many families that haven't gotten to the point where that became the last resort. So if tough love worked, we wouldn't need treatment centers.
Period. End of story. There's nothing good about being like that.
Look at the words. Tough love.
Right. It's like opposites. Sorry for the interruption, guys. But here's your friendly reminder. If you really want to show love and you're really digging this podcast as well as the other ones that I produce, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, push that like, and why don't you share this with a friend or family member? Appreciate all the support, and let's get back to the podcast.
Detaching with love. Detaching with love means we detach from the expectations and the pain. We don't detach from the person. But guess what? When I heard it, it was a turnoff. Just like this word here, your beautiful little name of your podcast. There's a lot of negative references made to black sheeps and family systems. And that's exactly why I'm changing that whole notion around. But you're right. And that's why when you say I'm kind of the black sheep in my field, I kind of get a little bit of because my son felt like he's the black sheep. I always say I have an out-of-the-box approach, because I even get a little bit... Because of what you said earlier, because of what I hear my patients say, that they feel like they're the black sheeps in their family, because they're connecting it to a negative connotation, to their addiction. Right. I understand that, and again, this is one of the reasons why I chose to run with that brand, because it shouldn't be connected to negative, and it's more of you're unique, you're special, you're rare, and you don't follow the herd. That's it. That's what it really is. But people can twist anything how they want. But let me ask you this, staying on topic with the parents. What do you tell the parents who think that kicking their kid out, who's dealing with addiction, because they are on their last chance, that's it, they already went through enough, whatever enough is, they already went through enough bullshit, and they think this is impacting our family, our home, in too negative of a fashion, where we think the right answer is to kick this kid out? What do you tell them? I would say that... safety first in their home. Okay. And that you do not compromise the safety of your home. And if your loved one is unable to respect the boundaries of your home, they are choosing to leave. We're not kicking them out. And I think we need to change that whole language. We take the onus, like, why am I responsible? Right. That I'm kicking a child out. My spouse is. We're talking a lot, we're using the language of parents. Right. This can go for spouses. Of course. Siblings that live with siblings, children that are being raised by grandparents right now. Everybody's playing a role, and everybody's getting affected in some shape or form. But again, I didn't have to throw some families are not throwing their children out. They're not asking their spouse, they're not throwing their spouses out. Their children or their spouses or their siblings are choosing not to respect the boundaries of the home. So why is it we're throwing them out? No, they're choosing to leave. So again, and I love this. Take the onus off of. But you're rewording it the way it should be. Not should, just. No, yes, it is. It is, V. It is the way it should, because when people put things into negative connotation, that's never a good result. Right. I'm kicking him out. No. He chose to not follow the rules, mess with the fucking safety of here, change the energy, and therefore he's choosing to go somewhere else. Right. A spouse who continually gets in a car under the influence, right, when driving their children to school, right, comes into treatment. My wife stopped letting me take the kids to school. You chose to continue drinking and driving with your children in the car. She didn't take away your right to drive the children to school. You took away your right to drive the children to school. Yeah. And the reason I think I get a little defensive of my ways is because people say, Miss V, sometimes, words are just words, semantics, you get some. No, I think words carry such a heavy weight. Oh, they do, big time. They do. And you got to be careful what you put in the universe and what you label yourself. There's science behind it right now that if you want to change, how you're rewired, be careful what you say after you say the words I am. Period. Yeah. I am. Whatever comes after that, you want to change your life, put some positive behind that. And I'll add one to you. I'll add one for you.
Uh-huh.
Be careful what you don't say. Stonewalling, silent treatments, rolling of eyes, dirty looks, gesturing. Those are all forms of communication. I don't have to say much if I want to get especially me. I'm Italian. I don't have to say a lot. I mean, I'll get my, you'll be like, are you all right? And I'll be like, do you think I am,
Okay, V, let me ask you, when do you know that boundaries are healthy versus cruel?
Well, the most important thing is that my boundaries need to be clear.
Microphone.
The most important thing is boundaries need to be clear. If they're unclear, they can be cruel. Not so much the word cruel, but not fair, because sometimes we assume somebody knows what a boundary is. It's unspoken.
Right.
A lot of my spouses will say, so my wife crossed the line, right?
Okay.
And the spouse didn't even know what the line was.
Right. So transparency, clarity in between the communication.
And so for me, that's the first thing. It needs to be clear. My favorite quote on boundaries, I say this every group I work with my families, is boundaries need not be an electric fence that shock the shit out of somebody when they get close. A boundary could be a beautiful white light around yourself that says, this is how I will be treated sacredly. And I think the misconception when families are not educated and they're being told that they have to put these boundaries in place, they think they're putting the boundaries in place for their loved one. They're putting the boundaries in place for themselves.
Yeah.
Cruel boundaries are rigid. There's zero flexibility. Healthy boundaries are flexible, and poor boundaries are enmeshed. Like a bowl of spaghetti.
Right. Right.
There's no boundaries.
Right. It's everywhere.
Or there's a wall and you can't even get in at all. Or you can have flexible boundaries where there's a little room for negotiation.
Flexible boundaries, and make sure that you're very communicative and transparent with what the boundaries are.
And the way to really do that when you're just starting as a family member is to use very clear yes and no's. Minimize maybes. Minimize I'll let you know. Minimize we'll see. When families, I'm going to use my son. If I said to my son, I'll let you know if I'm going to pay your car payment, maybe I will. He heard yes every time because I never didn't do it.
Okay.
Right? So I teach families clear means a yes I will, a no I won't, more than I'll let you know or a maybe, where then you get that person going, but I need to know.
Should families, when you know that someone's an addict, it's obvious, okay? Should families be, let's say, loaning money, giving second chances, giving this individual a place to crash, to sleep at when she or he randomly asks for it, things of that nature? Is that falling in the whole word that you hate to hear, the enabling part? Is that not setting boundaries? Is that, how do you feel about that?
I feel like each family, right, is unique.
Okay.
And each family is going to be able to I rather help a family put a boundary in place they can maintain than to try to put all these boundaries in place, right? So if a family is having a hard time saying no to money, I'm gonna really work hard with them to get a gift card instead of giving them cash, right? Help them with the bill rather than giving them the money to pay the bill.
Right.
And I work with them that way, right? For me, the last thing I could probably say I was going to stop paying was going to be the phone, right? Some parents are like, they want to cut everything off at one point. I would say that, yes, those behaviors are enabling behaviors. They're not all healthy behaviors, but that doesn't make the person an enabler. It means they're a human that's trying to find a way to set healthier boundaries in place. Once again, the label is where I have a problem. Just like when you said if you found out your loved one was an addict. No, if I found out my loved one struggled with the disease of addiction, what would I do?
Right.
Because then the family members, they create an identity for their loved one that's who they are.
You said you hate the labels, and I get that. I really do. And I kind of stress that on many different topics way outside of this intensity, but leaning on the whole label thing, is rock bottom a real thing? Or is that more like something that's misunderstood and it's just a terminology?
Wes, I wish I could run out to my car right now.
Grab that hammer. We taught the tenderizer.
I use a lot of props. I am an experiential family therapist.
Present people with this one.
Oh, I will in a minute. Ask me that question again. Is rock bottom a real thing?
Is rock bottom a real thing?
You know, I had a client once tell me rock bottom is when you stop digging. And I have about 100 shovels in the car, little shovels that I give to my clients.
I like that.
So who really determines rock bottom?
Rock bottom is when you stop digging. Okay.
Okay. So we need to stop thinking that the family member is going to be what's going to be the precipitating factor in someone who struggles with addiction and reaching their bottom. I know patients that have had 6 overdoses, had their children removed, and that's not rock bottom enough.
Shit.
And I have families I work with that have a patient comes in, 1 DUI, they never pick up a drink again. That was their rock bottom.
Right.
So these umbrella terms,
I get it.
I understand. My rock bottom for me was when I knew I was jeopardizing the safety of my home.
But going back to the power of words, it could be detrimental, right? When you stay stuck on these labels and you keep using them so often.
I always say change your words and change your world. And it might
like
not even
that.
change your circumstances, every circumstance, but it's going to change my experience.
I like that. I like
so,
that.
All right, I will bring out my toilet wax, right? So if somebody asks me, like, Miss V, like, what have you been doing the last 17 years of work?
Show the camera what you got.
What have
there,
I been
right?
doing for 17 years? 17 years I've been helping myself and families flush the shitty beliefs that get in the way of us really supporting our loved ones and supporting ourselves in the process. That is the biggest issue. It's the belief I have that makes me believe I'm a failure as a parent. It's the belief I have about something I did that makes me feel like a failure as a husband. It's the belief my patients have that make their behaviors that they engaged in during active addiction define who they are in recovery.
Yeah, that kind of totally answers my next question, which was, what do families need to stop being embarrassed about? But you're kind of hovering over it right now.
Well, I mean, listen, I was telling you at the beginning of this podcast, I can have this conversation with you today because I did 6 years of schooling. I've been in the field for 16 years. But going back to now, it's got to be more than 20-something years. My son is struggling more. I can tell you that...
it leans back. Damn it.
Yeah.
Leave it there so when you got to use it again. If I say something that's unacceptable, you flush that thing.
Flush that shit.
Yes.
And believe me, we talk about the word shit a lot in addiction recovery as well, and families. If I had $1 for every time a family said to me, I can't take this shit no more. I can't take this shit no more. And I'll say, well, then it's time to start flushing. Because it's the beliefs that create our experiences. There is, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be frustrated, disappointed in your loved ones. It's not okay to treat people mean.
It's crazy when you said that terminology in regards to flushing the shit out. There's a terminology, I don't know who invented it, but I know Bruce Lee kind of said it a lot. But basically, how can I pour you a cup of knowledge if your cup is still full? I can't pour you something. You got to empty that out in order to receive the new.
Yeah. I can tell you, Wes, that none of the education I got in a master's program, not through my licensure, and not even as much from my son's own struggles or growing up in a house with alcoholism. No one has taught me about addiction and mental health more than my patients have. They are my teachers.
Wow. Yeah.
I become the student when I'm with them. They think I'm the teacher, but I'm truly become the student.
That's great. When we had Daniel Rubin on, obviously you know him. Shout out to Daniel, brother.
Daniel, thank you for doing this.
You're awesome, buddy. You really, really are. And fellas, he works great with men's mental health. He's amazing. He's located right over there in Broward County. I think it's Miramar, not too far. So if you're ever looking for somebody, please reach out. But there you go. Will Manners. Yeah.
And here, just really quick on Danny, because I love him. What makes Danny so effective as a clinician working with men is authenticity and transparency. And that's what makes me effective with families. I don't go in and tell families what they need to do with their family. I share the mistakes I made. And I teach based on the mistakes I made and the things I wish I would have done differently. And that's what makes me effective. I don't have I'm not a better mother or a worse mother than any other mother out there that's trying to do their very best.
But again, like I told Danny, but that goes so far, V, because like you don't want somebody telling you how to hold a gun and go fight the front line if you've never been there. Who are you to tell me that? You don't want a dentist with yellow fucked up teeth all up in your grill telling you to fix your shit. You've been through, the trials and tribulation, much like Daniel's, has and is still a recovering addict. And on top of that, you guys educated yourselves to just complement your experiences.
I'm going to play angel's advocate with you, though.
Okay, go ahead.
I kind of agree with that. And then I think we need to flush the belief that I have to go through what you went through to have empathy. And I'll tell you why. I
like that. Okay, I fuck with it. Okay.
Well, fuck with it a lot, because when I started in this field as a person not struggling with addiction, my biggest fear were, how are the patients going to respond to me? I'm not walking in their shoes. I'm not walking in their shoes. Are they going to have any respect for me? 80% of the people that work in the field are in recovery themselves.
Right, that's right.
But because I am not in their shoes, it widens my perspective. I'm not going to look at my patients and say, this is the way I did it, so this is what works. I'm going to say, what have you tried and what has worked and what hasn't worked? Same thing for families, right? I have to be careful. That I don't make an assumption that what worked for me is going to work for them, because I don't have an ideal situation right now, right? I'm definitely in a healthier place, but, there's still a lot of pain in my own personal family.
So let's talk about the modern institutions right now and how you see things differently and what they got, I guess, considered right versus wrong. Okay, so the NIDA, which is the National Institute on Drug Abuse, frames addiction as a treatable brain disorder, not simply a moral failure or lack of willpower. Family-based therapies are also well established for adolescent substance use treatment and can improve engagement and outcomes. What does this old school therapy get wrong about addiction?
So I think it gets some things right? Like we have a disease model, but if you notice, it mentions like adolescence, right?
Right.
And I think what we're still getting wrong is that this is not a parent-child issue. This is a family issue. I hear all these people doing these podcasts out there. Right?
It's never just one individual,
it's always
right?
The parent talking about their kid. I work with adult children that have their parents in treatment, siblings that have buried their siblings to the disease. So for me, I think, I look more at what they got right is we know it's a disease, and families that can be sat with a family therapist and they know, well, what does that mean? And I give them the criteria. And I say to them, let me tell you what this means. It's progressive, right? It meets a criteria. First and foremost, you use despite consequences. Did Danny talk to you at all about that? You try to stop and you have withdrawal symptoms. And at least 3 of 5 life domains are impacted. 99% of the time, one of those life domains is their family life, their marriages,
right,
their relationships with their children. So I think that they got some of it right, and what the missing piece is to not treat families and or patients with a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah, this whole universal approach, it's not a good thing.
Sometimes I just feel like I got to flush the belief that I really can't really talk and say what I want to say sometimes, because I love the industry I work in and I want to continue working in it. So I'll flush the belief that I can't really speak my mind right now.
There you go. Good. You
flush
speak
that
it.
Shit again. And that's not to say that I don't work for amazing treatment centers.
Right.
I work for some amazing treatment centers. But when I say a one-size-fits-all model, I'm talking about the language we use with families. If we would call families, and instead of saying, you got to stop enabling your child or your husband or your wife, we said, God, I can see how much you want to support your loved one. Can I help you?
So with that said, do you think that most families are not being too soft with most therapists, are they being too soft with holding families accountable?
I don't think therapists are being too soft. I think quite the opposite.
They're pushing it too much.
My feelings have been that some therapists have been extremely, it's hard to listen, we're human. I'm a therapist, but I'm human, right?
Of course.
It's real hard to put our biases
right.
up on a table. But when I hear clinicians say, oh, so-and-so's family's sicker than them, right? I hear that a lot, right? The family is sicker than the patient.
Oh, wow. They'll say something like that. Okay.
No, they'll say it a lot,
Wow.
Or, oh, well, so-and-so's, his mother is his biggest enabler, or her husband's the biggest enabler, rather than saying, wow, I got this family member here that's calling every day.
Trying their ass off, they don't got it yet, but they're fucking trying.
They don't know what they don't. They just need to be said, wow, that is amazing that you want to be this involved. Let me help you. By the way, Wes, there's a concept called prodependence.
Okay.
I'm going to give a plug to my friend Rob Weiss.
Let's do it.
He wrote the book. It's called Prodependence. I had never heard of it until about 10 years ago. And his whole book is all about changing the language around codependency.
Really?
And it needs to change.
Prodependence.
Prodependence, just changing the language, looking at the strengths of caregivers and families that love someone with the disease of addiction.
You think some families are a little bit too focused on the trauma versus, I guess, the accountability?
I think what happens is the families get focused on finding anything that's going to make sense to them. If their child had some trauma, then they're going to be focused on the trauma. If their child had a physical injury and they were prescribed medicine, they're going to be focused on the doctor being the issue, right? If the client had, if their loved one was a behavioral issue, right, then it's like, oh, they're just doing this. I feel, again, it's very, very different for each
and even though I know, because it's definitely one of your biggest premises is for them not to try to take on everything like they are at fault. But do you think that more often than not, families who are connected to this addict don't want to take any accountability? They try to push off of it. Sorry for the interruption, ladies and gentlemen. But if you're really liking this podcast, as well as the others prior to it, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, push that like, and go ahead and share this with some friends and family. Thank you for all the support, and let's get back to the podcast.
Yes, I do think that there's a lack of accountability sometimes from families, and I think that's because of their own shame and their own guilt and their own possibly unresolved trauma.
Exactly.
Remember, trauma is the gift that keeps on giving. So there's a lot of generational patterns that, we're not going to be able to address those all in a 30 or a 60-day treatment episode.
We had talked, when we talked off camera earlier, we were talking about one of the questions and how we was like, it was a little weirdly worded. And that was, can compassion become, I forgot how it was worded, can compassion eventually lead to consequence? What's more important, compassion or the consequences? In other words, should you hold back from loving too much because it could have a bad consequence, or should you just stick to your heart and just let it be?
I believe that the two can coincide together, and that I don't have to compromise being compassionate in order to set a consequence. That's where the misconception comes.
Correct.
That in order for me to follow through with a consequence, I can't be compassionate.
Right.
That's not true. I can be compassionate, and there can be a consequence to your behavior.
So what do you think are some therapy methods that actually do work pretty effectively nowadays, that is from the old school, but you think it is effective and it's definitely something that should be practiced more often?
I think that, there's a lot of models of therapy that are effective. I mean, I'm an experiential therapist, and all that means is that I follow the theoretical framework of creating experiences for families, because if it was the painful experience that's creating their discomfort and conflict, then creating a healthier experience is going to create a more peaceful experience, right? So some of the older, when we talk about therapy, or you're talking about programs?
Oh, shit, that's a good question. I really wasn't specific on that. Okay. I guess I was thinking therapy, but I was thinking therapy in a program form.
Right. So dialectical behavior is the new go-to in motivational interviewing. And so when you think about motivational interviewing, we're assessing the stage of change that they're in. Are they even wanting to change, right? That's putting a lot onto the patient. Families don't really get involved in motivational interviewing. It just becomes about, Wes, how motivated are you to stop, right? So there's no family involvement. Solution focused is, here's the problem. I don't care how we got here. Doesn't matter what happened to you. What do you got to do to get better? And then there's traditional family therapy, which looks at everything in the context instead of this one-size-fits-all model. The way I like to look at it is, I've been working in treatment so long, and a lot of the treatment centers, they'll have speakers, and we're all the same here. You know? We are all the same. Bullshit. People struggling with addiction are in a similar storm, but they're riding it in different boats.
That's right.
And so are family members. Don't make an assumption that one family is having the same experience as another family impacted by addiction, because if a family has no resources financially, they're not in the same friggin' boat.
Right.
Right? Maybe they have a language barrier.
Right.
They're not in the same boat. So that would be, I think, the biggest issue I have is, rather than us taking these umbrella, I don't even want to call it, they call it cookie cutter models, you know, in treatment.
Right.
I don't even think it's cookie cutter. I think most therapists really genuinely, effectively want to do good work with people.
Right, of course. Yeah, if you're in that field, yeah, of course.
But I think that we need to look at what's more of like when we talk about effectiveness, I feel like we're still doing very solution focused. I got 30 to 60 days with you, right?
Right.
So let's just figure out how you don't walk out of here and pick up, right? I'm going to look at it. I not only want to help you not walk out of here and pick up, but who are the people that are going to be your village when you get out? Not everybody is just going to be using the fellowship.
So on that note, this is a perfect way to go into what will be my next question. What do you think that the treatment centers should be teaching families on how to welcome this individual when they're coming home?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I just did a whole group on this for families. I did a whole group on identifying how they self-sabotage their own, like
right.
meaning not only that they wanted to focus on their loved one's self-sabotage. I wanted to focus on how we as family members self-sabotage.
Right.
A lot of times helping and enabling get kind of blurry. I say there's a fine line between unconditional love and enabling, right? There's like this fine line. But I'll tell my family members, if you start to become resentful, you are no longer helping.
Wow.
If you want to know whether you're enabling somebody or helping, measure your level of resentment. People that help people don't get resentful. So I help my families understand, can you do this for your loved one and not feel resentful? Or are you going to throw it back in their face 2 weeks from now like I used to do? That's the first thing I do.
Right. Do you think that where does the resentment come from? Well, you know, like if somebody's trying to be helpful, why is it that they would get resentful? Is it, once again, projecting what they're going through? Is that, I mean, it seems like that's the common, response, like that's the common, denominator, but, or is it because, man, I don't feel like fucking helping you. You're a grown ass, or obviously it varies.
It's a little bit of that.
Okay.
Or it's, I'm doing this with an expectation that you're going to do that, and then you don't meet my expectation.
Bam. There you go.
So
that happened with me and my brother without the drugs. Go ahead.
Family Zooms. I do. Hour and a half helping families manage expectations of their loved ones. Sit at a table, negotiate. Warning signs. That's another thing. Patients will get out of treatment, and if they're going to return back home, because the assumption is, of course, people would benefit from going to sober living. Wes, not everybody can go to sober living. That would be ideal if they finished treatment and they didn't have to go back to work, or they weren't a mother and had to get back to their children, right? So I always say, excuse me, the bottom line is that, I just lost my train of thought. Refresh my memory what I was just saying.
Well, I guess we're talking about when the victims come, when the addicts come home, and how the family has to work with them. And I don't know you.
That's all right. So basically, the warning signs. That's right.
That was the last part that you read. Okay.
A warning sign for me would be if my son's eyes looked remotely, he could have been tired.
Right.
But I'd be like, oh my God, your eyes look funny.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how shame provoking that was, because there were times I said his eyes look funny. He was not using.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I have my patients write a warning signs list, And then I have family members each write a warning signs list. And then they compare them. So if mom or to their brother, if you see me not returning calls, call me out on it. They get to share what the warning signs are.
Right, because they know, yeah.
Getting them involved, not so much in the disease component, but in the recovery component.
Right. And I imagine that makes it all, the success rate a little bit higher when they're involved.
I mean,
like
we
the family being involved in the treatment is it's just absolutely imperative, right? It's mandatory, is it
So
not?
there's people that will argue with me.
Really?
No, people that would argue that really the focus needs to be on the person struggling with addiction, and then the family stuff comes down the road.
Wow.
So, and I say, maybe, unless they got to go back home and live with their family, right? So again, this one size fits all.
Exactly. It goes back to
If
that.
somebody's got to go back to their wife, right? Then I want to make sure I'm working with that wife. If somebody's going to go into sober living for 6 months or a year, maybe family therapy can come a little further down when they're a little stronger in their recovery.
All right, V, let's get into some hot topics dealing with the addiction and family recovery. Okay, so once again, we mentioned it earlier, SAMHSA, the SAMHSA. SAMHSA defines recovery as a process of change where people improve health and wellness, live self-directed lives, and work towards their full potential. Why are so many young people getting addicted earlier now?
Well, that's also a complicated question. I wish I had the answer, but I think one of the things is I think social media is a big influence, a lot of instant gratification, a lack of like real true social connection. Before, people would get together, they would be out in the street.
Right.
So I think that there's a lot of self-medication going on. Also, probably, I don't know enough research, so I don't want to claim that I know something I don't know. Also, children are getting medicated younger today.
Yes.
For depression, for anxiety, for attention deficit disorder, mood disorders that were never, ever diagnosed till adulthood are now being diagnosed in 14, like bipolar disorder was not usually diagnosed till adulthood. So I believe that it's also a lot of like self-medication,
Without going too crazy into the rabbit hole, do you have a little conspiracy about that? Do you think there's a reason for that? Or is it just, more, is it the water? Is it the fucking, is it the medicine? Because there's an argument that it's the medicine. Is it the shots that they're getting, what do you think it is?
I don't really have a conspiracy theory on
No?
that.
Okay.
I believe that, if you look back in the 60s, heroin was prevalent, Back in the 60s, there was a heroin addiction was impacting a lot of people.
Right, it's huge.
I think it's the nature of the drugs today, the synthetic drugs. They have much more addictive qualities than some of the drugs back many decades ago, and a lot more difficult for them to get, for people to come off of.
You mentioned social media playing a role. It's always playing a role. And when we had Daniel on here, we spoke about that. When I had David Kraske on here, we spoke about that. Where do you see, how is it that you think social media plays this role in affecting this crisis?
So I think there's several ways, besides the fact of like the marketing piece and the posting of people smoking a big fat blunt or drinking or using, that could be enticing for like a vulnerable young adolescent, but it also could be enticing for an older person who's maybe lonely and they're seeing, the market, the posts.
Right.
They say that we live in a very our culture is very lonely today. But the scrolling is instant gratification. The brain is constantly being fired. So when we stop, I need something that's going to kind of like get my dopamine levels up. I think, I don't know if Daniel talked a little bit about like dopamine.
Yeah, he did.
And that's what makes some of these process addictions so much more difficult to treat, like social media addiction, pornography, and sex addiction. Those are process addictions. It's not a substance that's going in your body that's giving you an artificial increase of dopamine, right?
Right.
Actually, with gambling and with sex addiction, it never goes that high. It goes here and then goes lower, here and lower. So you're a lot of young people who are now addicted even to social media, like with pornography. It's very sexualized. I don't know if you agree with this, Wes. You ever look? I'm not a big Instagram, TikTok girl, but I do go on, and it's sexualized.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of contributing factors, but if I was to take a guess, I would say from my personal opinion, loneliness.
Do you think parents are somehow missing the warning signs a little bit more nowadays because they have too much confidence in their kids, or maybe it's because they think it's not a big deal? They're just on social media like everybody else.
Yes, I think that we all have the capacity of missing warning signs, right? So I watch, a year-olds, 1-year-olds now, they can use the phone, they can get on, they can watch Peppa Pig, they know how to get it, they know the numbers and everything to get on the phone. So it's difficult for me now that I know what the consequences of being on these social medias and being on the phones all the time. I'm seeing the impact of it now in adults in treatment. So I think, yes, we are missing some warning signs. I think that we've lost a little bit of the ability to connect without a device.
So what are some of the signs, if you can point them out? What are some of the signs that you can catch a little bit in advance before it unfolds into something bigger? What are some things that parents can look for that are signs that they might be missing?
Well, I'm going to say parents and I'm going to say spouses too, because
you're right. Thank you for correcting me on that, and that's what it should be, because it's not just parents. That's what we need to do. She just fixed me on the spot. She just checked me on the spot. That's what we need to do. I keep saying parents, but it's anybody who's having a parental or an influential role.
And siblings also have
siblings as well,
role,
of course.
Because sometimes it's a sibling, an older sibling that smoked their first joint with their their younger sibling.
Yeah.
So I think that what we need to do is just be a little bit more not so afraid. I feel like families are walking on eggshells around each other sometimes.
Right, yeah.
Well, if it's nice and quiet and there's nothing, it's no conflict, and
let's not stir it up.
I've been guilty of it myself, like I have my grandchildren and they're on the phone and they just seem so well behaved and they're just sitting there, and honestly, I don't even know if we know half the stuff that's popping up on those screens.
Right, yeah.
For our children. So I feel like us as family members to not be so afraid to ask or just say, hey, I've noticed isolation's a big thing. If somebody can't sit at a dinner table, or your spouse or your child is no longer partaking in any family activities, that would be a time to say, we need to have a conversation about this.
Okay, so let's keep going right into that conversation. How does someone try to rebuild trust with their loved ones, their family members, their siblings, their friends, after obviously putting them through that roller coaster of what comes, when fighting addiction?
So coming from the patient's perspective, I teach my patients to be very curious and ask their loved ones what they need to rebuild the trust.
Okay.
Rather than to make an assumption.
Right.
Because in treatment centers that I work at, Wes, this is what I hear. I get my toilet back out. It's going to take a long time before your family is ever going to trust you again. Bullshit. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to take a long time.
Like it.
Here's another one.
Go ahead.
My family's never going to trust me again. I call bullshit on that too. Trust is built in little steps. It's lost in big buckets. I think it's Brene Brown. She says, we lose trust in a bucket of sand and we regain it back 1 grain at a time.
Wow.
So I always tell
I like that. Damn. Okay.
Isn't that beautiful?
It is. It is.
Give
Okay.
Brene Brown credit.
Yeah.
She talks a lot about trust and the marble jar. She inspires me a lot in her work. So that would be something I think is a misconception, is we tell patients that their families are never going to be able to trust them again and it's going to take forever and they don't have a right. What do you need from me, Mom? So I can start rebuilding trust. Perfect example. I do a lot of couples marriage therapy.
Okay.
So I worked with a couple, and the husband says to the wife, Life 360 and the thing on the car for the breathalyzer on the car.
Right.
Or you will no longer be driving. No worries, I'll do it. I don't care. You could put the breathalyzer on the car. I'll be on Life 360. All I want to do is regain your trust. Take another family member. I'm not going on Life 360. You're not going to track every move I make.
All right.
Right? So those are the things. Open up a dialogue. What is it going to take for me to rebuild trust with you? By the way, sometimes the patients, right? Sometimes they need trust rebuilt, the families have broken their trust.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Quite a bit, actually.
Of course.
Betraying confidence, sharing things that maybe was not
100%.
their place to share.
Yep.
So that's what I do. I encourage open communication.
So we all know when dealing with addiction, we've all heard this big word, relapse. Okay. Are people putting too much emphasis in it, or is that something that as a family member or anybody connected to this person, they should always keep that in mind, but not put so much strength into it? And if that individual does have a relapse, what is the best way to deal with that?
Oh, what a great question. And this is what I work with families as well. We have a kind of a little bit of a broken system because in the treatment industry, if a patient has a brief relapse and they're in the phase of care, meaning detox, residential, partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient, if they have a relapse during their treatment episode, unfortunately, we don't have transitional treatment. So they go right back and they have to go back into a detox because they can't be in the environment with people that are not using.
Right.
I'd like to think that I use a different word for relapse. I don't know who told me it many, many years ago. A relapse is very different than a slip.
Slip?
S-L-I-P.
Slip. Okay, slip.
Sobriety lost its priority.
Oh.
And so what I took is...
Slip. Sobriety lost its priority. Damn, I like that. Okay. Slip.
So, and again, I can't remember where I heard it, so I can't give the person credit. However, I took that same analogy with families, and I said, okay, so your loved ones may have a slip, and for us, a slip is going to be self-care loses its priority.
Okay.
When I stop taking care of myself at the expense of US, I'm screwed. That's when the resentment comes in for families. You asked me that earlier, right?
Right, yeah, of course. Yes, I did.
It's when I do shit that I don't really want to do for you.
Yeah, that was when we were asking about when is it built, the resentment. Yes, exactly.
You know, and then I become, you want to use a label, I become a persecutor.
Because you punished them or because you broke off from them because of that?
No, I just become a persecutor because I'm going to remind you how you were a selfish little,
prick,
whatever.
Yeah.
Or how you ruined whatever, the holiday or whatever. And then I'll play the victim after and say, poor me, why me, nanny, nanny, boo-boo,
How big of a role does trauma play in addiction?
Well, if A equaled B, then I would definitely be on drugs or alcohol.
Right.
Because I grew up in a home, I experienced a significant amount of childhood trauma. So A does not equal B. Does it play a role? Absolutely. Even more significantly, what families don't understand is the trauma their loved ones experienced as a result of their addiction and addictive behaviors. Some of their trauma didn't come prior to the use. It came during the use.
Right.
So that's what I also try to teach families, right? Because families like, my loved one didn't have trauma. I don't understand. Well, they did as a result of their use. Did you get what? I
did. I'm wondering though, do you think people use it as a crutch more often than they should? Because trauma, PTSD is as real as it gets. And I talk about PTSD a lot, and it happens in many forms to many different people. Most people relate it to people in like wars, or maybe from somebody who's gone through some like real deal crazy trauma, which again, it becomes very, very severe when they think about it.
Big T's, little T's in the treatment industry.
Is that what they do?
There's big traumas and then there's little T's.
Okay.
Little traumas.
But I do think that, trauma does have a big role on certain things, but I do also think people will fucking overplay the hell out of them and lean on them for every little thing. So I wonder if addicts use that more than what they should, obviously. But then how can you question that? You know what I'm saying? If you went through some shit and I'm questioning them,
but
that
you just did. You said they overplay it, right?
Right.
Then I would wonder, why would this person need to overplay this?
Okay.
So I'm always asking, what would make a person have to say, it's my trauma that made me do
it, right.
Instead of focusing on whether or not they're playing it, I focus on why they would feel the need to make it about that. Is it about shame? That at least if they know that they say that it's some trauma they went through, then it could explain why they are used it could be an explanation as to why they're struggling with addiction. Will they get more empathy from other people if they know that it was trauma that caused it, and they just wanted to go out and party, and it felt good? They wanted to have a good time, So I think that that's where part of it is. And then also Gabor Mate. I don't know if you've heard of Gabor Mate.
No,
he has done like 40 years of research. He says, don't ask why the addiction. Ask why the pain. So he feels it's pain, not necessarily always trauma, but it could be physical pain or emotional pain that can lead to the addiction.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you find yourself liking this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and why not share this with a friend or family member? We appreciate all the support. Let's get back to the podcast. I know when we talk about it from a physical standpoint, I'll probably get some backlash from this, and I don't know how to word it, but I'll just come out as it rolls off my tongue. So fat shaming, right, is really looked down upon. And I guess basically when you almost attach that word to anything and it's just looked down upon, shaming somebody or them feeling shame, you shouldn't feel shame. Shame is just, ugh. But I do see the pros in the whole fat shaming thing, and I'm not trying to derail and go into that, but
you're definitely going to get backlash on that.
Of course, I know, because it's just I'll fucking attack it on a different podcast. Y'all stay tuned, but. This is one of those times where I feel like shaming would never go the right way when it's with somebody who's dealing with an addiction.
So I haven't seen it work too often. I attempted to do it myself.
Okay.
But I didn't think I was intentionally shaming when I was doing it, right? I was operating from fear. People tend to resort to shaming because they don't know what else to do. So they think maybe if I shame you enough, you're going to stop. Right?
So they're out of tactics. They're just not educated enough. This is the best they can do is keep shaming them. I think it's
the best that they could do. I think that something is eventually going to work. If I tell you, how could you not go to your grandmother's funeral?
Yeah.
Or I can't believe you missed your son's baseball game because you're
God,
drunk.
but when I hear it, it's like, but it sounds like that should work. You should remind them. Bro. How could you do that? Get a grip.
But if it worked, we wouldn't need treatment centers, Wes.
I get it, V. I'm learning too.
We wouldn't need treatment centers. I'm letting you know if those tactics work, we would not need treatment centers. There is a physiological component to this disease that people tend to forget about. When I became a therapist, I wasn't sure if I believed that addiction was a disease. I think there's a lot of clinicians out there. There's still people that are not sure if it's a disease.
Really?
Yes. Even though we have the research. But what is disease, Wes?
Exactly. What is disease?
Dis-ease. Not at ease. Mental health disorders, not in order. So dis-ease, not at ease, disorders, not in order. I think it was Louise Hay that did a lot of work around that. So to me, I try to stop figuring, I get more curious than trying to figure out why somebody's saying trauma or why a family member is doing this. Curiosity is, and I have a colleague who really helped me with this too. I just loved her questioning. We wouldn't ask the same questions because we don't have the same theoretical framework. But she had a curiosity.
Right.
And I think families and patients appreciate. Let me get curious. Let me not make an assumption why you named this the black sheep.
Right.
Right? Wes, why'd you name this black sheep?
And you practice that with
all of the families.
Listen, I'm right there with you, V. I'm the same way. And I will just always, when I know the curiosity is going to get the best of me because podcasting comes out of me in a good conversation. If I meet you on the streets or we're in fucking Publix and we start vibing, I catch myself. I'm like, oh shit, I'm in podcast form. I want to ask all kind of questions. So I would just get you ready. I'll be like, hey, I know I just met you. What's your name? Is V. V, would you mind if I ask you? That's how I would do it. But yeah, curiosity would get the best of me and I definitely would ask. Yeah. Now, speaking of that curiosity and what people assume, where do you think families go wrong when they hear or they try to put an image or an understanding behind rehab centers and sober living and I don't know what other names are out there, but we don't know. It's just like me, I've been to jail, I've been to prison, and I can tell you a whole lot of crazy shit of how it's not like the movies, or I can tell you what part is like the movies, and I can tell you the parts that you guys got it totally wrong. it's where does that, in comparison, where do you think families get it wrong about what they think about these living quarters where people go to when they're dealing with addiction?
Well, I think, again, I'm going to go back to where we started this podcast, my 3 E's. Education, right? Empathy, empowerment. Education's going to empower me. I listen to clinicians sometimes. I listen to the treatment centers talk to families, and they're like, oh, yeah, your loved one's going to move down to IOP. You think they know what IOP is? It's the song, go down to IOP, now you know me. You know, they have no idea.
Right.
They have no idea. Where is my child? Where is my husband? I thought my husband was here. I thought my husband, what do you mean? What's the next level? First, we have to teach the family members the language around treatment.
Right.
Come on, listen. This is no secret, right? This is it's a business, right? A multi-billion-dollar business.
Right.
Right? They're all in it for the money. Bullshit. They're not all in it for the money.
Right.
It is a business. So I think that for families to
like, what do you think they got the wrong idea in regards to what's going on in there, or do you think that
I think that South Florida, excuse my language, fucked things up for the treatment industry for a little while there because of the unethical shit that was going down. I think most treatment centers are running.
Are we like number one in treatment centers? Are we up there?
The most. I think
Really?
California and
And the majority of them are up there, what, in the Palm Beaches?
Yeah, Palm Beaches.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that there's some really amazing ethical treatment centers I know because I work at a majority of them. I won't work anywhere that is not, running a strong ethical clinical program. I think that if family members were involved, not with their loved one's therapy, but more involved, then they would, even if they did a little tour, a little Zoom tour. This is where your loved one's going to be, not a website that you go on, and they see all this. No, literally, this is where your loved one's going to be.
I think you've made it so obvious that one of the biggest things that need to be done just to get better results, period, is really just educating the hell out of other people involved.
But again, Wes, I have to say this because even when I hear myself say it, it agitates me a little bit because it sounds like we say that with a lot of things. Just educate ourselves. Just educate ourselves. No, we as professionals have a responsibility to educate the families.
Families, right.
Right? So this isn't only about them getting education. I believe we need to take onus for some of that. If we're going to blame families, right, for either doing too much or enabling or whatever, then let's take responsibility for educating them. Not that they have to just take responsibility. We as an industry need to take responsibility.
V, so obviously you work for families, that's your thing. And you've seen the pros, the cons, the everything. I love that you've experienced so much and you're willing to contest some of these old ways and implement, new ways and kind of just, find a balance, find a harmony. But what's one of the biggest breakthroughs that you see when you do family work? Like, what's the most common thing that, really encourages families that, hey, we're doing good, let's keep this up?
Well, now you got me excited because that's my passion. So a little bit, so you understand where I'm coming from. When I first heard of like a lot of these family involvements or family education seminars for families, it was just for the families.
Okay.
And so what I wanted is, about 15 years ago, I said to one of my clinical supervisors, what if we had the families participate in the entire weekend with their loved one? No, I think we should just do 2 days without the loved one, and then, maybe at the end, I go, well, then what are we really doing here? They can do a seminar on Zoom.
Right.
So I created a family weekend experience and a curriculum where the entire weekend, from Friday evening all the way to Sunday afternoon, the loved ones and their families stayed together for the entire weekend. Families got to see what it was like to sit in a group. They got to experience what it was like to do therapy. They got to experience what it was like to feel uncomfortable.
Wow.
So the biggest breakthroughs I feel I've had is family members who have really allowed themselves to take their wall down. There's a little lobster metaphor, Wes.
Lobster metaphor? Okay.
So I have about 500 lobsters in the car right now.
Okay.
Little rubber lobsters. And every patient and every family I work with get a lobster. A lobster molts by getting very uncomfortable in its shell. So the stimulus for the lobster to molt is uncomfortability. If the lobster had a pain doctor, a cocktail bar, a casino, a whorehouse, or in my case, because I'm codependent, a bunch of sick little lobsters that needed to be taken care of, as soon as I felt that uncomfortability, I would go escape. I would distract myself from it, right? So once the lobster molts, it has no shell, it hides in the ocean. Why? Why do you think, Wes? When the lobster has no shell in the
Because it
ocean.
no longer looks like the lobster. It feels shame.
Oh, well, I didn't even think of that. Wow,
Hey,
man.
see that?
Wow, I've never heard anybody say that. They're vulnerable.
Okay.
They're going to get eaten alive.
Right.
But you know what? I don't know if a lobster knows how to conceptualize shame, but
Right,
I
and that's
know-
why you make more sense, right?
No, it doesn't matter make more sense. I kind of really like that because
Okay.
in that vulnerability for us, when we have that shell off, it is some shame that we experience.
Right.
So the biggest breakthroughs I have seen is when family members, husbands, wives, parents, mothers and fathers, and I will say, most importantly, siblings, who become oftentimes the invisible grievers in the system, when they are able to take the wall down and take their shell off, be vulnerable, be honest, but from a place of love and compassion, not from a place of attacking and criticism. And I think one of the biggest breakthroughs I have often is when a family member acknowledges their own addiction that they never acknowledged till they were in a weekend.
Wow. And you just implemented that? Was that new, or was that
I've been
going
doing
on
it
now?
for over 16 years.
Wow. Okay, but it was your idea that kind of got that
Yeah,
going.
and I wouldn't say I'm the first person that ever put a
yeah, I
family
get you.
weekend retreat, but my curriculum is very, very unique. It's very out of the box. They're not getting any pamphlets. They are jumping in. They are doing toilet work. They are doing lobster work. I do a process where the family members get blindfolded and their loved ones, right, go around them telling their loved ones what it feels like when they are in active addiction craving to use. And then I reverse it. And the clients put their blindfolds on and the family goes around and says what it feels like for them when their loved one, when they don't know where they are, they don't know if they're dead or alive, you know? So I think for me, it's about increasing compassion and connection, not disconnection.
Right now, V, after going through everything you've gone through in your young life, you've learned a lot, you've experienced a lot, and you've gone through a lot of harsh times that we haven't touched up on it. We know it's there. There's no reason to touch up on it. But I do want to bring you back a little bit. And I want to ask you this. You're giving all this great advice right now. What would a young V tell yourself when you were going through some of those hardest times?
Like, what would I tell that part of me? I would probably tell the 20-year younger part of me that she really did the best she could. I love my son dearly. I loved my father dearly. I would just say that to that younger part of me that I did the best I could with what I knew, and I've taken pain and I've turned it into purpose.
That's an
I
amazing
think that's
answer.
something to be proud of.
100%. I definitely applaud that. And then what would you tell other parents or families, or people involved with a loved one? I love how I'm trying to change the words there.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
I
too,
know
Wes,
I do.
because
I'm all about growth,
Just really quick, the industry speaks a lot of times like the patients are children. It's got this like parent-child language around it.
Very condescendingly, very.
Thank you very much. You said
Of course.
And it really just pisses me off because these are paying patients coming to get treatment, and again, the language is very parental child.
So what would you tell the families who are kind of the people involved in this person's life that are trying to hide the addiction, you know, they're trying their best to not let people know about the addiction. They're not opening up. I mean, obviously they're not fucking putting it on the news or the social media, but they're definitely making a valiant effort to hide it. What would you I guess recommend that people do in those situations?
Well, first thing I would say is I get it.
Right.
Because I did it. You know, and I kept it very sheltered, very in my home. And then I minimized the substance because I thought people would have less judgment.
Regards to like what drug you said or whatever.
So I lied about that. I would say that the only way that we're going to change the stigma, there's so much talk about, let's break the stigma, right? Actresses, actors, mental. Without action, there's no breaking shit. You know? I tell my families, I would tell them, what are you going to do to break the stigma around this? Because if our loved ones, and I think I said this to you earlier, if our loved ones were struggling with any other disease besides addiction or mental health, our entire family system would be rallying to help us, baking us cake, making us casseroles. We'd have no problem putting our loved one had cancer on a GoFundMe page if we needed help to get them treatment.
Right.
But how many families do you see go on and say, my son has a heroin addiction, I need to start a GoFundMe page? Have you seen any? No,
you're right. It's a crazy reality check because it makes total sense and it's the truth. And I hope people take that with a grain of salt, like really, you know?
And again, can I come off as a little bit of a drama queen? I don't think I'm a drama queen. You know why I don't think a drama queen? Because it was my real life story. It's not a fucking Lifetime movie.
Right.
I'm not coming in here and saying something that I didn't live through, that I still continue to have. I still have an impact, not only of my family members' addiction, growing up in it as a child, you know.
What do you tell the addict who feels like his family, his or her family turned their back on them?
So I would tell the person struggling with the addiction, because that's what I said.
There you go. Damn it. Person struggling with the addiction. He's not an addict. He's a person struggling with the addiction.
Right. And believe me, you're going to get a lot of backlash for that.
I don't give a fuck. I love that approach, and I'm all about that. I love it.
I would tell the person struggling or that has the disease of addiction, they don't know what to do, and that some of it may have been told to them even by professionals to cut them off. Don't talk, you know, I hear this sometimes. Don't talk to your loved one for 6 months. Let them get 6 months under their belt before you speak to them. Listen, you know what? People die every day. Cutoffs and estrangements, and we won't go there tonight, Wes, are not healing.
Right.
Turning backs on your loved one is not healing. It's just not.
Yeah, I told you that was something that I suffered with when I got out of prison. I felt a certain way, and pain and anger and all kind of stuff. And yeah, that was a bad habit of mine, and I realized I had to fix that. And now I'm the complete opposite. And it's something people need to hold themselves accountable when they do it though. And I think that's what helped me fix it. I know I was doing it, and then I addressed it. So.
And we're works in progresses, and that's another thing I would tell. We're all works in progresses. You know, I used to, looking back, sometimes I would say ignorance was bliss, but I don't mean that. I don't mean that ignorance was bliss. But sometimes just like when we know, we have to take responsibility. And Will Smith said something. Doesn't matter whose fucking fault anything is, it's our responsibility to heal.
I like that.
And I like that line.
I do too. I do. Let me ask you this one. We'll leave this as a last one for the question. It's it's a strong one, but it's if a mother's watching this right now, crying in silence, thinking she failed her child, what do you want her to know?
First and foremost, I want her to know she's not alone. And secondly, I would want her to know that there's more than one way to get to support. And I would want her to know that again, there's more than one way to get support, because a lot of times if a mother's sitting in fetal position, she might not even know there's any resources available at all, that there are resources available. And to find one person that she could speak to, that she trusts, that she could say exactly how she's feeling rather than having to hide it. It's really hard, because when you're asking me that question, I think I'm starting to get emotional, because I was that person.
Right.
in fetal position on my couch, almost kind of like going in withdrawal. Like your loved ones go through like a physiological withdrawal from detoxing off their substances. Mm-hmm. And I feel like families detox and go through withdrawal and losing their loved one the way they know their loved one, you know?
You're giving so much amazing advice. And I don't care if some people feel like it's contradictory or some might have heard the opposite somewhere else. You know, the advice that you're giving today it really is and we didn't have to go deep into all the details of, you know, what any family member or people you have, you know, the struggles that they've had, but you have definitely been vulnerable enough where you've opened up and spoken about this stuff. And I really appreciate it. And I want to, if you can give one last big general piece of advice, and I know that's hard, you know, like if you ask me, Wes, what's if you only got one, you get one swing, what would you tell somebody? Best piece of advice just to move forward in life. I would easily say emotions cloud judgment, so learn to control them. I think that is the best piece of advice I can give somebody because of how much emotions have a reaction, you know. So
funny that you say that.
What? Yeah. What?
Say it again.
Emotions cloud judgment, so learn to control it.
And I would say you have to feel it to heal it.
You have to feel it to heal it.
And that doesn't mean you have to stay stuck in it. That just means to allow yourself to feel it and not be so afraid, because that's what happens with my patients. They get so afraid that when they start in the rooms of AA and NA, they say the best thing about getting clean and sober is you get your feelings back. The worst thing about getting clean and sober is you get your feelings back. So I would say,
oh, wow, that's intense.
You have to feel it to heal it. So like if I didn't sit in a therapist's office, and I love my therapist, and I truly love her, for on and off for 10 years, with those slingshot snots coming off my nose, you know, like that go up and down. And sit there and just have, and that's another thing I would just tell that mother, you know, is seek some help, you know, like seek any support from wherever you got to get it. So I would say you have to feel it to heal it for family members. And I would also say, don't take this shit personal.
Flush that shit out.
Flush that shit that this is personal. It's not about them. I mean, it's not about us. It's really about them. And if our love for them, it wasn't enough for them to get clean, that doesn't mean that their love for us was, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Love has nothing to do with this disease. And if it does, let's love them well, not love them to death.
B, I know there's people out there who are definitely going to want to seek out some help. Where can they reach you at? Where can they follow you? How can they get in contact with you?
So I'm just starting to have a little bit of a presence. So I have they can find me on, there's very little on there because I'm not a big social media girl. Okay. But they can find me like on YouTube under Miss V at Brewing Connection.
Brewing Connection? Mm-hmm. Okay, Miss V at Brewing Connection. Mm-hmm. And but you don't have an Instagram? Damn,
I think
woman.
I do. Maybe I do. I might.
Well, guys, you can look it up or you can hit me up and I will connect you with her as well. So, you know, obviously she's amazing at what she does. While we were off cam talking about it, you know, she's busy. Like, I don't even know. You're not dating because you're too damn busy. You know, we just talked about that.
I know somebody like that.
Hey.
Thank you, Wes, so much.
You've been awesome, V. I really do appreciate you so much. And I hope everybody out there can take this and do something with it. And even if it doesn't affect you and you're not connected to it, we all know somebody who knows somebody. So spread this love and pass this on, and, you know, have somebody look at this podcast if they can hear this and they can seek somebody, a professional like Ms. V, who can help them, or somebody else that she can probably, you know, lead you in the right way.
Absolutely. And just know, like, the person sitting here on this podcast isn't the person I was 10 years ago. That the same way recovery, according to SAMS, is a process, family recovery is too.
Families, we got to get more involved. Every one of us, we all play a huge role in anybody who's connected to us and is struggling with some form of addiction. So please take this for what it is and involve yourself. Yeah. Don't brush it off. Don't say, I'm not his dad. I'm not his mom. I'm not his, no. We all play a role.
Not my wife.
Not my wife. Yeah. We all play a role, and let's be more adamant with our efforts, you know, because it helps. And then if you see somebody who is dealing with, you know, the suffering and that they feel like, you know, they're the parent or they're the loved one connected to them, then help them. Sometimes it's not, like you said, you know, that they need the help just as much. Yeah.
Make them a cake. Make them a casserole. Ask what they can do. Ask what you can do to help them.
Guys, I appreciate all the love and support. Make sure you show your love to Miss V as well. Stay tuned and keep showing peace and love out there. V, I love you. Thank you so much, girl. Take care, guys. Bye.